Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Rhonda Matthews. I am an associate professor of politics at Edinburgh University, and I'd like to welcome you tonight to The Crown We Wear. Tonight, we are going to talk about various issues of hair as it relates to Black women. So we welcome you to this webinar, and we'd like to let you know that this is sponsored by the Edinburgh Bruce Gallery, so we'd like to thank them. And then we'd also like to thank Erie Arts and Culture for supporting this webinar tonight. So I'm going to start off by introducing our two panelists, and the way we're going to do this tonight is we are going to have a couple of brief presentations from both of our panelists, and then we're going to kind of move into a free-flowing conversation about the role of hair, the role of culture in the way we wear our hair, and take it from there. We're going to have a wide-ranging discussion. So I'd like to welcome tonight Ms. Sharon Norwood. Sharon Norwood is an artist of Jamaican ancestry whose work spans several mediums and include painting and ceramic work. Norwood attended Florida State University, where she obtained an MFA in studio art. She has exhibited throughout the United States and internationally, including Canada, Jamaica, Korea, and Germany. Her practice often explores issues of identity, speaking about race, gender, and our perceptions of beauty. In her work, the curly line takes on special importance as a metaphor for the Black body, as well as a decorative element that speaks to drawing. Norwood's exhibition record includes solo exhibitions, group collaborations, and site-specific installations. Her work has been exhibited at the Atlanta Contemporary, the National Gallery of Jamaica, the Telfair Museum, the Museum of Fine Arts, St. Petersburg, and Florida State Museum of Fine Arts. Excuse me. Norwood is the 2019 VCCA, Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, Jacques and Natasha Gelman Fellow, and a 2019 Joan Mitchell Foundation nominee. Norwood currently maintains her practice in Savannah, Georgia. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. While you were reading that, I was like, I felt like I could lip sync. Anyhow, I just want to thank everyone for showing up, and I guess a special thank you actually for giving me the opportunity to wear lipstick. I haven't done in some time. Okay, so please forgive me if although I've done a few Zooms, I'm not an expert by any means. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go through a few of my works, just letting you know, just kind of like a little bit of an artist talk, but not so formal. I don't want to put folks to sleep. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And this is the one that I want. And click share. Go, and then there you go. Present, and then put it on. How's that?
There you go.
Okay, so I just wanted to start off while this still video is going to speak about like my original interest in hair and in line and using hair as a medium. I think for me, I definitely was thinking about identity and self, but also not wanting to do figurative direct representation. When I began doing this work, I think I was thinking more or less of how to find a way to speak to a broader audience about things that I myself was sort of thinking about. And I think one of the things that in this video that stands out to me, that speaks to me, is that it's about, for me, it was about seeing, and it was also about this space where I live as a Black person, where, you know, hair is always the center. You know, I am there, but my hair is like this representation of myself. So in this video, I think I was thinking about looking and seeing, and just trying to think about the white cube in terms of the artist, the gallery space, and also the male gaze and what that means for Black bodies. So initially my work began with a series of drawings, black and white drawings. And really the drawings were meant as a way for me to unpack hair, because I traveled and I've been having conversations with myself. And one of the things that I was starting to think about was that I had internalized all these negative and supposedly positive associations to hair. Like, and I was thinking that even the positive associations that I had learned about Black hair sometimes were actually negative. Like, what, you know, it seemed like it was good, but it's actually, you know, was sort of the other opposite end of making me feel bad about this thing called hair. So I started doing these drawings by just, you know, I think in this one, it was like a photograph of my hair, but some of the images were actually hair fallen, taken from my brush and fallen in my bathroom, and just the different ways that I looked at it. And I wanted to draw the hair. And I remember my thought process being, okay, just draw the line, Sharon, you know, just, let's see what happens, how, if this drawing transforms your thought and the way you think about the thing. And so as I was drawing, it was really kind of a meditative process, thinking about the line and I was thinking about landscape and how, you know, and some of my thoughts were, you know, this was this undiscovered landscape to be discovered. Now, you know, it's all these sort of very sort of empowering kind of words. And one of the things I surprised myself with was that, because in drawing, I didn't know whether or not this material would actually render as hair, if people would read it as Black hair. And after I think I made my initial 13 drawings, I started showing them to my friends. And a lot of them were like, oh, this is hair when it's falling out of the brush. This is hair when it's, you know, landing, you know, in my, on my floor, or just after wash day, or what. So it was really interesting for me to hear the different stories from African-American folk that look like me, speaking about this hair, and that we all were sharing this sort of universal experience with this material, which was very empowering. So I think one of the things in terms of me trying to bring it back to my practice was there's a painting that comes to mind, and and I always say his name wrong, so please forgive me. It's Fragonard, 18th century Rococo style. And this painting really spoke to me, because to me, it reminded me of an afro. And for me, it reminded me of these curly, ornate things that was my hair. And when I look at it, I think about all these, you think about beautiful and lovely and romantic and all these wonderful associations. And I wanted those wonderful associations to be associated with curly hair. So in drawing and creating these landscapes, that was kind of one of my thought process was, you know, how do I see the thing for what it is without any of my negative associations, and present the thing as being very beautiful. So that was one of my early works, ideas. And so, I look at it as a discovery, and perhaps as the work kept giving back, because, you know, after the drawings, you know, I was inspired more further. And so some of these inspirations came about just perhaps labor. And one of the things I was thinking about was, folk that look like me being in spaces where we're perhaps doing this invisible labor. So we're there, we're present, but we're absent. We're a part of serving perhaps, but we're not perhaps at the table drinking, but we were there. So I think with these works, I was definitely trying to have a narrative that speaks about this invisible body that is so much a part of things, and also, wanting to make these special maybe narratives about, or about these objects. Like in this instance, I think I was using the porcelain, and I was pairing that with Black hair. And so what does it mean, you know, when you know, black hair, you know, undeniable black hair is paired with these precious items. And I think one of the stuff I was thinking about, does it make this work better? Is it making the work better, or is it destroying the work? And in my process, I think I definitely aim for the works to remain functional, so that it speaks to, so, you know, in a clear way, it's definitely not making these objects, it's not degrading the objects in any way. And in my mind, I like to think that maybe it's enhancing these objects, and it's sort of like bringing another layer, another conversation to the piece. And then of course, you know, depending on who sees these works, you know, it becomes like an internal discussion for themselves, because we all have hair, we all can relate to hair in different ways. So what does it mean when you see this hair on these objects and it's not your hair, it's actual othered hair? So these works were kind of like meant to like have a conversation. And one of the things I like to think is that the work, you know, seduces you into this, like almost like the Frog and Up, where it's very romantic and beautiful until you get really close, until you recognize that what's there, and then you kind of have to like negotiate your way out of it. And how do you negotiate your way out of that space without like thinking of yourself, you know, and your ideas about this material, or this you know, hair being on these things. Does that make any sense? So here's some more of the works, and these ones are you know, I was putting it again on the porcelain. Initially, when I first began working, I was definitely having a very minimal language. So I wanted to use the line. I wanted to try and generate these metaphors. Initially, you know, trying to teach my audience how to recognize it as hair, and then, you know, moving on to like more complex conversation once it's recognized as hair. So in these works here, I think I'm playing around with the black and white. I think the one with the blue is a later work where I'm kind of like thinking about color. So these are more images where I'm again using my initial drawings to interrogate found objects. Found object is something that I utilize a lot in my work because for many reasons. I like the fact that these objects and images are already embedded with their own histories. And so then marrying them with a curly line gives a very sort of, adds to a conversation. It's like, I think one of the things I thought was that the line was like a sentence. And so, you know, with these found object, I'm able to create more of a paragraph or a longer conversation without having to like articulate all of it in a very sort of specific way with, you know, through painting or other mediums. But more of the same. And I think in these works, I was definitely thinking about these times where these ladies would have been, you know, it would have been the height of perhaps the slave trade and the spoils of sugar, and, you know, everybody's like beautiful and wonderful and enjoying this very opulent lifestyle. And then that is pretty much the benefit, you know, it came out of brown bodies, right? So I wanted to interrogate that space with the curly line as a reminder that this is, that there are other people that are responsible for this wealth, this opulence. Like when we think about this, it's easy to look back at these times and think, wow, this is so, you know, romantic, and it's, you know, so beautiful. But then you don't think about the labor and all the other ways that we've built our economy that you know, subjugates brown bodies and such. More of the same. So in this work, again, I'm playing using the curly line, and I think some of these work that are more have more of the hair taking over. I see it. It's definitely aggressive, and for me, it definitely is kind of like a way for me to protest. Maybe it is a way of protest, perhaps, you know, in terms of taking these very precious objects that, you know, you would probably get on for your wedding anniversary, and they're like very beautiful. You bring them out to special occasions and such. This was kind of a way for me to have a conversation about, you know, what it means to sort of like to support, to be a part of creating these spaces, but again, but not invited to these spaces or not recognized in these spaces. Some more, I'm just gonna go through. And it's what's interesting for me that, you know, with these pieces, again, I start off with a curly line as mark, but over time, it becomes like iconic. Some of the marks are definitely favored. And so you will see the marks repeated. And it's funny because folks sometimes often say to me, Sharon, how do you get hair on there? In fact, there's no hair on these objects at all. It's actually a drawing that's like fired on. But I think once your mind thinks of it as hair being in there, for some reason, you cannot not think of it as some more stuff. So I'm gonna go through it, but if you have questions while I'm going through them. So some of these works also I've switched a little bit to fiber. It's one of my early fiber pieces. My embroidery is really terrible. But with the line, one of the things I started thinking about gesture and our unique mark and such, and of course, you know, penmanship, you know, in terms of our marks and our gestures. And some of these drawings, I've been doing them so long now that, you know, I kind of like have like a certain way of moving in terms of making the line. And so for me, it definitely indexes my unique gesture. And so in the same way that I think with handwriting indexes your unique gesture. And so I've kind of transitioned a little bit back and forth into fiber through the line being a unique gesture, not hair, but in terms of our writing. And with this piece, I was trying to take the, because now that everyone can recognize and sees hair as language and hair as mark, you know, these are ways of me like making this thing, like bringing it into the round. And it's funny because when I first started drawing these works, one of my greatest dreams was like, I was like, oh wow, it'd be so cool if I was ever at this really amazing museum and I have all these drawings of curly hair and people are sitting there looking at it like with reverence. Like to me that was like, oh wow, you know, that is like, you know, success, you know, where people are looking at the curly mark. Because I think too, you know, in terms of this mark, it's there, but it's like so, it's what's like hidden in plain sight for me, to me, like the way our hair moves and the way, how beautifully ornate it is, because we're always just trying to straighten it, you know, kind of thing. So this is kind of like my way of bringing that work in the round and having like a playful conversation with these things. So there's another piece of me playing with flowers, and again, using those beautiful metaphors like beauty and pretty and awe. You know, whenever the work is described in those terms, it's certainly like, it's like, oh yes, yes, yes. You know, that's kind of like what I envisioned for the work. And this is another piece where I was kind of thinking about being in the South. And magnolias, I've got a magnolia tree right outside my studio. And so, you know, I wanted to think and have conversation about those kinds of things. And these works here now, these are more recent. I'm close to the end, guys. Thanks for your patience. So these works here, one of the things I'm realizing that, you know, I was using, you know, cups and salt, tea, you know, and of course tea has, you know, very sort of like very historical significance and stuff like that. But I was using that language, but I wanted to kind of extract that some more, you know, like reduce that language some more. And so how I'm doing it is that I'm, you know, to me, this is the teacup, even though it is the hair and the decal work kind of thing. More of the same. And these ones I put in here to show that, you know, my original drawings definitely continue to inform just about, not all the work I make, but a lot of the work I make. So whether I'm etching it into a painting or I'm, you know, using it as material to like cover or to take over spaces, you know, it's something that definitely continues to inspire me. And I like working with these marks over and over so far. So time and time again, you see those in my work. And this piece here, work here, was an installation I did, which at Florida State, where I took over the hall with these marks. And what was really lovely about this installation for me, that persons of color with hair like mine would walk into the space, and immediately they would see themselves, and they're like, oh yes, I get it right away. I see, you know, so that was really wonderful to see. And so, and this was in a school. So for me, it was great because it was, you know, schools have a historical, there's definitely a lot of history with African Americans and school and education and stuff. So for me, and who has access and who doesn't have access, and who grants permission and who doesn't grant permission. So this work was a part of that, and I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, in the future I'll get a chance to really develop this. Let's see if there's any more. Nope, that's the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. We have one question. We have one question from the Q&A for you. Well, what's your favorite art medium to work with?
Well, it depends. It really depends. So sometimes when I'm working in ceramic, if there's not this immediate gratification, you got to fire the work, you got to make the work, hope the work doesn't break, put it in the kiln, glaze it, take it out of the biscuit, then glaze it. And then with my decal work, that's sometimes, you know, 5, 10, 15, quite a few firings. So in that process, sometimes I just need to make some work that I can see and I can do immediately. So a lot of my work happens within the spaces of making other work. And so there's no, for me, there's not necessarily what I like better. It just depends on what the idea is, because I enjoy them all, you know, like the embroidery. I think I did an embroidery in 2 weeks because it just made sense at the time while I was meditating over some other works. So unfortunately, I like to think my work is definitely centered in ceramics, so I always try to go back there. But drawing is, you know, offers definitely a different immediacy. And my undergraduate is in painting. And so, you know, depending on where I am, if I've been doing a lot of drawing and ceramic work, I may just want to smell some oil paint, make some painting. And my paintings usually turn out really terrible, so I don't usually show them very much. But sometimes it's just enough just to be able to get in there and do that.
Okay, good, thank you. I see your questions in the chat and the Q&A, but I'd like for Danielle to speak next, and then we'll go back to the questions. Okay, so are we out of, yep, we're out of share screen. Oh, and I forgot to say this at the beginning, but this is being recorded. I mean, I know it's late, but I still said it. Okay, so let me introduce Ms. Danielle Slade. Danielle is a licensed cosmetologist, educator, and salon owner. Most of her professional career has been focused on the importance of obtaining advanced education and independent study to stay effective in business and providing optimum hair care services to clients. Danielle's passion for the beauty industry has led to becoming an advocate for other professionals. As VP of the Concerned Beauty and Barber Professionals, that's an organization that addresses the need to protect the health and safety of licensed professionals and the clients that they serve. She is also an executive director and trainer advocate for Politics, Beauty, and Barber, an organization that works to strengthen the professional license of the beauty and barber professional of the beauty and barber professionals and encourages them to engage in the political process. As a salon owner for over 5 years, Danielle has been able to overcome many obstacles. With each bump and bruise, she has obtained experience and wisdom on how to run a 5-star salon and become successful behind the chair. So I'd like to welcome Danielle. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. And I just want to thank, of course, Bruce Gallery and also Erie Fine Arts for this awesome opportunity to meet the wonderful Ms. Sharon Norwood and just speak on this, this forum. This is absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, I don't have a presentation. This is my first time appearing on something like this, but hopefully it won't be my last. So I'm definitely, again, I'm honored to be here. I just wanted to share a little of my story. As I think back, hair has always been a part of my life. I really think that this industry chose me, so to speak, because my mother was a hairstylist. My paternal grandmother was also a hairstylist. I have multiple family members that were just into hair and just nails, fashion. So appearance was always important in my household. And I would say the journey has been just incredible as I think about just the things that I've had to overcome over the years. I mean, I grew up during a time where, curly hair wasn't necessarily in. Now we went through the phase, of course, the Jerry curl, S curl, because my mom had one and I wanted one. But because my texture of hair was a lot thicker and a lot coarser than my mother's hair, and of course her mother's hair, it was always the curliness and the texture of my hair wasn't always embraced. It was, I mean, I started getting my hair hot combed. That's when we take an actual iron comb and you put it on a fire and you run it through the coarse hair to make it straight. That started at about maybe 5. I had a lot of hair as a young kid, and my mom just she didn't really want to be bothered with all of that hair and texture. So I grew up loving curly, big hair, big, sexy hair, so to speak, but it was never really an option for me until I started doing hair on my own. And I did attend like a vocational high school during that time, and I was taking cosmetology classes. I dropped out. I was a beauty school dropout at that time of the program because I felt like our hair was not being embraced. It was not being taught. And I didn't want to do white hair per se. And so I said, because at that time I thought I was good and I did everyone here in the neighborhood. So I didn't want to do white hair. So and then at the time, it really wasn't, during the 90s, there really wasn't a lot of opportunity in hair as there is now in this industry. It really wasn't taken seriously in the Black community, unfortunately. So I did go into corporate, and I spent some years in corporate, and I had a great job, made good money, but I just always felt like there was something missing in my life. I always just felt like I wasn't really living my truth, or just kind of really following my passion. And I did pray, no offense to those, to whomever you may serve, but I did pray, and I really was looking for a opportunity to kind of find myself. And when that opportunity arose, it was a life-changing moment, because I had a mortgage, I had 2 children, one income, and it was really life-changing, because I had to really step out on faith and return back to cosmetology school, back to beauty school. But during that time, I guess at that time in my life, because I was older, I was a lot more mature, and I really could have more appreciation of the science of hair. And that's when I learned that it really wasn't about color, it's about texture. And I think that now, moving forward into these current times, texture is really being embraced, because of course, Black women, we come in all different shades, colors, sizes, and so does our hair. And to be honest, I've even styled some Caucasian women. Their hair is just as thick and coarse as mine. So, I think that, during this time, I'm just really excited to be able to have these conversations, these discussions to bust the myths and really take away that stigma of Black hair, or the nappy hair, or unmanageable hair. I'm here to bust those myths. I mean, because it's just not true.
Okay, thanks to both of you for introducing yourselves to us and your work. Now, I would like to say this, that from my perspective, what I'm looking at in the 2 of you in terms of your work, I view in many of the same ways. Excuse me. I think you're both doing art. And you're doing art. Sharon, you're doing art, in these, traditionally art media. right? You know, painting and ceramics and drawing, etc. Um, but you, Danielle, are doing art um, with the hair. I've seen the work that you've done. I've sat in your chair, right? So I think that what you're both doing are different sides of that. Well, I can't say different sides of the coin because there's only two sides to a coin, but you know what I'm saying? If you're, it's such a multi-layered thing, this idea about hair. And I think that what y'all are both doing is the same thing, but just in different areas of life. You know, you're both showcasing this beauty that you know, our culture for many years has told us is the exact opposite of that.
I think what was interesting for me was when I was doing my research, because I come from a space of thinking, trying to sort of like shed all these negative associations.
Hmm.
That when I was once I was doing research, I recognized that just about every culture, like just all of our insecurities with it about our hair, is present in just about every other culture as well. But learning in terms of how different hairstyles, you know, um, can kind of separate. Speaks to your age. It speaks to your gender. It speaks to your class. Like if, for instance, if we cornrow our hair, for instance, we might consider that. I mean, things are changing, but at one point we braid, if you braided your hair in 3 braids going to work, that's not considered professional, right? Whereas a child braiding their hair in three, that's considered completely okay. And so in learning and studying about hair, because there was all these racialized stuff embedded in it, it was really hard for me to pull out the stuff that was like, that would be present anyways, in spite of all the racialized tones. There's certain things that would definitely still be a part of our conversation in terms of our hair. So that, I think, in working through and studying, some of those things became like real to me. Because I remember, with the notion where there was this notion, whereas if you had afro, you were like you were real woke, versus if you had straight, then you weren't. And so those kinds of conversations, like it's like, okay, well, or if you wear your hair covered, with a wig, like, what does that mean? Does that mean you don't like your, but then, as someone who's getting a little bit older, I'm thinking, well, it saves a lot of time, there's something, so, but then I have to reconcile that with this narrative. Like, am I being my authentic self if I choose to do this with my hair? Am I not being real, or am I not being, so I think that's really interesting.
Hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I agree, Rhonda. It's funny because I never really tied being a hairstylist as being an artist, because I cannot draw. So I've always just really loved to see people's work. I'm always just like, oh my God, just infatuated with those that can draw, and just really talented. My daughter is an artist, my husband's an artist, so I'm always just like, oh my God, like, you guys do amazing work. And and just a few years ago, I had someone tell me, well, Danielle, you're an artist too. I'm like, well, no, not really. I do hair, and she's like, no, you're an artist. So it was a big paradigm shift for me, because it began to open my my eyes to see, wow, I am creating my own form of artistry, just using hair and the textures, different textures of it. So I just think that's awesome.
Yeah. And color too. Do you do a lot of coloring as well? Because I know that
Oh yes.
that's also,
My hair is actually purple. You probably can't see because my lighting is not that great, but my hair is actually purple.
yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love color. We live for color. It's so fancy.
Well, but that's new. That's new. So some of the things that some of us had to endure, growing up, have they've changed so much, and it's changed the way that we can do, or the ways in which we think about how we can do our hair have changed so much. I remember the hot comb, like clear as day, which is pretty much why I don't, this is why, because I don't want to have to work that hard on it, right? But we used to not even talk about the ways in which Black women could color their hair, right? For many years, people were told that there were only a certain number of colors that you could get if you were gonna dye your hair. So even that's changing, and I think that we have come a long way. Just by the two of you sitting here, I think that that's a sign that we are incorporating this discussion into our or we're incorporating these new perspectives into our broader discussion. I think that there is no question about that. Okay, so hang on. We have a couple of questions from the chat. Sharon, where's your dream installation space to take over if you were able to make another site-specific piece?
If my dream space would definitely be a museum. I think the curly line needs to be present in the museum. An important museum would be great.
Okay. Let's see. Simone says, I love how you are confronting the standard language around the intersections of femininity and being Black. Do ideas connected with fragile, valuable, demure, tender, refined, elegance, purity, etc., how do these notions underscore or bump into the connotations we collectively and individually hold of Black women?
That's a good question. It's a really long one. So I think I know what you're saying. I think definitely for me, the work, I think unpacking those learned associations to this material and trying to present this material in, like, when I do my drawings and you look at the drawings, like, my hope is that you're seeing the drawing and you're not hearing these negative associations. You're not hearing, like, nappy and, tough or dry. You're not hearing those things. You're actually looking, at this material, at the hair, for what it is. Definitely, I think my broader work speaks to gender and femininity. I do so through the use of color, perhaps, and perhaps, interrogating traditionally domestic spaces, like in terms of, where I'm using the teacups, and I'm also engaging with the dining space as a site as well. And so that's kind of like how I'm kind of trying to weave this kind of conversation. Generally, I think people normally, when they see the work and they see, I feel like it's packed, even though it's very simple, because because there is this, like, strong history with these objects. Did that answer? Did I go off a little bit? I'm trying to.
No, you were right in there. So Danielle, I want to ask you, what is of your clientele among people who are younger? What is their sense about what hair means in our culture right now?
I believe that this is a great time to be young, right? Let's just first say that. It's a great time to be young. And what I'm really noticing with a lot of our younger clients is that they are really embracing their curls, which is, I think is great because, like I said, as I was growing up, you were just taught to relax your hair, or you would straighten your hair. You wore it straight, you wore it manageable. Whereas now, a lot of the youth, even the young guys, they are really embracing curls, texture, twists, locks. Of course, they do like a good blowout where the curls are in a more relaxed state and the hair is straighter. But for the most part, they are loving it, wearing color and just really experimenting and kind of finding their identity through their hairstyles.
And so oh, go ahead, Sharon.
I was gonna say that it's interesting because I remember years ago, in sort of the dance hall culture, the reggae dance hall culture, where the ladies were, like, doing blue hair and pink hair, and I remember when they were doing that, the common conversation about that was, like, not very good. It was like, oh my God, that's so ratchet, that's so this. All these negative associations about the way these young ladies were wearing their hair. And now, everybody wants blue hair.
Right.
Absolutely.
So you both have brought up this thing that I'm really interested in about hair, and that is as not just as presentation, like what you were just talking about, Danielle. Younger people have a much broader range of physical expression that they can bring out there, right? Um, but also this means something writ large. So one of the things that I was thinking about was, these countless, it's not countless, but it's been a lot of stories over the past 2 years, a lot of news stories of um, Black people being controlled by their hair. Right. So there was a young man, it was in 2018, who was at a wrestling match. He had locks, and they wouldn't allow him they actually made him cut his locks. The umpire ruled against them somehow. Nobody can ever find records of, them doing this before, but it was clearly a move of dominance, right? He told the young man, if you want to continue in this match, you have to cut your locks. And so there's this whole performance where, this woman comes up, these white people are standing around this young Black man cutting off his locks. And it just reminded me of what we did to indigenous people, when we colonized and committed genocide against them, right? One of the first things that we did to assimilate people who were indigenous was to cut their hair, right? So there's that. And then there are the rulings about, what constitutes quote unquote professional hair, or hair in a quote unquote professional setting.
Right.
And, Black women being, so talk a little bit about those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think
I want to say that to kind of tying into what you were saying as far as the colonization, even if you go back into slavery,
Mhm.
the women were not allowed to show or reveal their hair.
Mhm.
They were required, forced, so to speak, to wear some sort of head covering, or you
The, the,
were, being unlawful.
I think I'm mispronouncing this word, but the Tignan laws.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I think, so it's always been, unfortunately, it's always been almost a crime to really wear your natural hair. I'm thinking a joke popped into my mind, and I believe it was Paul Mooney, and he says, when our hair is relaxed, white people relax. And I heard that joke years ago, and it really, and it's funny, but it's very true, because to be honest, if I was still in corporate, I may not have embraced my natural curly texture as quickly as I did once I left, because of the position that I held and the people that I was in front of. I don't know if that would have been considered acceptable as professional attire. And so it almost comes to where it's like, okay, do I want to leave my job? Do I jeopardize my livelihood to be who I am, to be allowed to embrace who I was born to be? Sometimes it does. I have clients that, just for whatever reasons, I'll ask them, hey, where do you work? What are some affiliations that you're a part of? Because whatever we do with our hair, it's going to stand out and we will be noticed. And unfortunately, it's just still not acceptable in a lot of places.
I think that whole thing in terms of wearing your natural hair is definitely seen as a sign of protest. It's seen as a sign of protesting, sort of like with respectability, or this sort of you're almost like militant. Where an Afro, people are like, oh, you must be real radical kind of thing. And I'm not sure. I think, and that's I think a big part of that is what I think helps my work be stronger. I think because I say to folks that, like, with our hair, when our hair is like lying in a space, it's like a sculpture. It takes up space, it takes up form. You have to pick it up. It's not going to hide on the wall. You don't have to look in a specific light to be able to see it. It's going to be there. And it's kind of when you wear it, whether or not you are pro-military, I think it just says to folks that, I accept myself, the way I am. And that in itself can be seen as, okay, well, maybe you're too enlightened, you know, maybe you're too, you know, you're too woke, you know. So that, I think that becomes like a part, and a lot of us, we recognize it becomes that code switching. It begins to live in that space of code switching. So if you you know, are going to an interview and you have your curl, you might throw something on just because you know that if you show up with your hair, you know, it's going to be, you are going to be considered one of those, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You're so right, because I mean, you've taken me back to a time where I've had clients that'll come and get their hair blown out or get a silk press prior to an interview. And then a few weeks to a few months later, once they're hired and they're comfortable, like, okay, Danielle, now we can do a curly style, or now I can, you know, wear my natural hair. And, you know, it's almost like you have to put on this representative and then ease your way into, hi, this is who I really am. You know,
Right.
it's such a hard, you know, pill for us to swallow.
Well, you said it earlier. I mean, really, you know, when you come in your natural self, you probably gonna scare the white folks, right? And so it's and I think that it's not even an overt thing. I don't even think that people know that they harbor this kind of prejudice until it sits in a qualified body, you know, across from you in this interview. Right now you got to figure out, do I want to hire this person because I think they might be radical just because they let their hair grow out of their head in the way that it's naturally going to
It really
be.
does. I think it forces, perhaps it forces people to be accountable. Like in terms of, it's funny because my work, I feel like my work somehow does that too. Like especially the pink works where people see it from afar and they're like, "Ooh, that's so pretty," and then they come close to it and they're like, "Uh-oh, I know this is not me," right? And what I love about it is that I feel like one of the things I think about, when you speak about these things, people can say, but, you know, and rebut. But with the work, I feel like the word speaks and it's speaking to them, you know, and whether or not it's something heard by somebody else, they hear it, you know, I think it shouts to them that, okay, this is really good because it's a Black person's here. Let me get the hell out of here. You know, so they have to, they kind of have to like reconcile with their own thoughts because because they have hair, you know, and it's hair. So right away, you are thinking about yourself in relationship to others, you know. So that's one of the things that I really, you know, like for the work to do.
And I think yours does, because I think that what you both are doing is you're challenging, you know, the ascription of these negative images, you know, upon the hair. So like in your work, Sharon, I kept thinking, you know, that I think people would be freaked out about it initially because they don't think that the hair is supposed to be there. But you know, yeah, it is, right? So some of the reason that this got made, this little dainty object got made, is because of the people, you know, whose hair look like this. And so, and then there's the you know, the strong and the delicate, right? So I kept seeing, you kept putting, you know, this very curly hair on these dainty cups, and all I kept thinking was that that it was the juxtaposition of the brittle and the strong. Is I don't know if that's what you were doing, but that's kind of what I took from it.
I think that's really interesting because a lot of people come to this work in different phases. I think the most recent one where this young lady said that when she was younger, she had this very nervous habit where she pulled her hair out. And so she would pull her hair, and so she said when she looks at my wares, it reminds her of what, you know, the surfaces would look like after she pulled out her hair. So I think people definitely the work definitely brings you back to like your personal experiences with this thing. And what's nice is that I feel like, you know, everybody has an experience, whether you're bald or not. We can definitely relate to the material and the subject matter.
Well, you know, the representative, I think we're a little bit less than 5 minutes here. But you all know the not Senator, I'm sorry, I'm elevating her position, Representative Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts, and she is the Black woman who is a member of the squad. But she recently revealed, it was earlier this year, she recently revealed that she has alopecia and that she had been wearing a wig and that she just refused to stop wearing a wig. And so I think about what you were talking about, Danielle, and the fact that this is such a different time because she's not wearing a wig. She's going to work bald, right? Sometimes she'll shave in her eyebrows, but that's how she's coming as she naturally is. And so I think that what you said about us being at a, in a different era is absolutely true.
It really is. It really is. I think that it's just there's a lot more acceptance, and also there's a lot more pushback. A lot of women are just tired of being just being told who to be and how to be, and at the end of the day, my qualification shouldn't be justified on the way I style my hair. If my, you should look at my resume and the things that I have to offer instead of only focusing on my appearance. I mean, that's ideal. I'm a dreamer, so hopefully
Yeah.
one day that'll be acceptable. But I think we're definitely moving into a space where we're just women of color, women with even also men are just in a space where they are willing to not take the job, to look for alternative ways of employment, or why even put your child in certain educational systems if their appearance will not be accepted. And I think that is helping to really start to change a lot of minds.
I absolutely agree. Okay, so let's see. We have another question. Okay, here's a question from someone who is anonymous. Can we also talk about how more women have started rocking shaved / very short hair and what that means for all of us? It's empowering that there are so many ways we can go out into the world.
Well, I think that's really interesting because whenever I travel to like predominantly Black countries, I'm always like just looking at all the hairstyles that are being worn, and that's really empowering in terms of seeing people braid their hair and it looks professional. And I think that's really I think a lot more folks are, I mean, at some point in your life, you definitely want to be your authentic self, and if that means, not, even, not bending to this societal expectation, I think it's important for us all to at least experience that.
Absolutely. I think it's also a means of convenience for a lot of women. I cut my hair maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, just out of convenience. And then I also just wanted a different look for myself. So I'm speaking from my own experience. Short hair is fun, it's sassy, it's sexy, and it also can take some years off you too. So if you feel like you just need something fresh, fun, I say go for it. I think that it's awesome that because even with hairstyling, I think the art of barbering is also really starting to be put under a spotlight, because there are some amazing barbers out there that is doing incredible work. And they're able to give you a really cute, soft, sassy cut without making you feel too masculine or, just like old or outdated. So, I'm really loving the short hair. Even if the finger waves are coming back. So, and at one time it was told, you had to wear a relaxer, you had to have your hair chemically straightened to wear those types of styles. But now with new products and new techniques, you can still get those styles with your naturally curly hair. So it's exciting.
I cut my hair when I was in my mid-20s, so that was in the 80s. And really I cut it because I don't like I don't like messing with hair. I just want to get up in the morning and go. When it's time to go to bed, I just want to go. I don't want to have to wrap it. I don't want rollers. I don't want to have to go sit in the, I just don't want to have to do any of that stuff. And people have all these things where they're like, oh, you're a militant and all that. No, I just don't want to fuck around with my hair, all that. I just don't want to do it, right? And it's so it's strange to me that for me, just personally, I understand it intellectually and from our cultural standpoint and stuff. But mostly I'm just like, I just don't want to mess with my hair. Why are you making me,
Exactly.
the radical? But I think to what both of you have said, that, that there's something radical about presenting yourself as you want to present yourself. I think there's something huge and powerful about that. So we're at time, and I want to thank both of you so much
Thank you,
for
guys.
engaging in this conversation and letting other folks hear you and talk about these analyses and the ways in which hair is important for Black women in our culture. Would either one of you like to say something right quick before we?
I just wanted to thank Erie Arts and Culture for making this possible and bringing me here to Erie for this residency. And
Yes, thank you, Erie Arts and Culture. We appreciate it.
was
Danielle?
Yes, I just want to thank everyone again, just for this awesome opportunity. This was incredible. Just having this opportunity to speak and talk about one of my first loves, which is hair and all things hair. So this was exciting. And just a shameless plug, I am a new published author. I just wrote
Yes.
a book, so I'm really excited. It is catered more for the beauty professionals. It is 7 Steps to Success. But I believe that it can still be applied to any profession that you may feel that you're struggling or may just need some encouragement on how to get there. So it's kind of a roadmap to get you there. So that's available on my website at www.fancychicks.com.
All right. Thank you all very much. And thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thanks again to the Bruce Gallery and to Erie Arts and Culture for sponsoring. You all have a good night.
Thank you.